Albert Einstein is a cultural phenomenon. He has enjoyed scientific celebrity status for decades. He also has a lot of critics, although you don't hear too much about them from popular science sources. Ironically, I sometimes wonder if he would be more sympathetic to his detractors if he was still around today, and I say that in all seriousness. I am no Einstein, he once joked in response to the adulation that began in his lifetime. According to Wikipedia, yes, I know, the German-born theoretical physicist is widely ranked among the greatest scientists of all time. Despite his cult hero status, however, growing numbers do not even regard him as a scientist, let alone a great. The clue is in the two words, theoretical physics. This rests almost entirely on mathematical modelling, unlike classical science which emphasises experimentation and observation. Quote, "As far as the laws of mathematics refer to reality, they are not certain, and as far as they are certain, they do not refer to reality." Close quote. Albert Einstein. To summarise this philosophical viewpoint, one common among critics of Einstein and, apparently, Einstein himself, math should be ancillary, not dominant. Making science subservient to mathematics is putting the cart before the horse, let alone hubristic. Just think epicycles, where the mathematical model can make accurate predictions up to a point, yet fail to reflect the underlying reality. Heavier-than-air flight was also considered impossible a little over 100 years ago, and they had the math to prove it. The importance of mathematics is not denied. Again, the point is that the math should follow the science rather than building the science on idealised mathematical models and selectively interpreting data to fit. Furthermore, current models rely on free variables to balance the equations, equivocations some might say. Dark matter and dark energy are the oft-cited Achilles heel of pop science. They remain undetected after decades of searching, despite allegedly comprising roughly 90% of the universe. Those who pretend there isn't any debate to be had on the dominant role of mathematics and science have a problem, but don't take my word for it. Quote, "Physics is mathematical not because we know so much about the physical world, but because we know so little." End quote. Bertrand Russell. Quote, "Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality." End quote. Nikola Tesla. Oh, and here is another one from Einstein himself. Quote, "Since the mathematicians have invaded the theory of relativity, I do not understand it myself anymore." End quote. Even if you think Einstein had his tongue planted firmly in his cheek at the time, I would suggest that many a true word is spoken in jest. Philosophical issues aside, Stephen Crothers has done a fine job exposing the flaws and leaps of faith in so much math-based cosmology. A preeminent mathematician, he is counted among the most competent critics of general relativity, the Big Bang, and black holes et al. Quote, "Hawking was a pop scientist who ipso facto contributed nothing of value to science. Einstein was the first pop scientist, promoted at some time or another by that other entertainer, Charlie Chaplin. Hawking and the Einstein cult have ruined physics and astronomy, turning them into circus freak shows. Science cannot just wait until they all disappear. Whilst they are active, they are ruining young minds entering science to be caught up in the same rat race, producing more pop scientists. The cycle must be broken." End quote. Stephen Crothers. Too bad that, for the time being at least, complex and esoteric math shields so much institutional science from robust scrutiny. Quote, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." End quote. Albert Einstein. Isaac Newton admitted he did not understand the mechanism behind gravity and had to settle for describing it mathematically. Quote, "But hitherto I have not been able to discover the cause of those properties of gravity from phenomena, and I frame no hypotheses." End quote. Isaac Newton. Einstein solved this problem by factoring in time as an additional dimension, the fourth dimension, resulting in alleged space-time curvature. But has he effectively replaced a mathematical description with a mathematical abstraction? Quote, "There is no model of the theory of gravitation today other than the mathematical form." End quote. Richard Feynman. In classrooms today, Einstein's solution is sometimes illustrated by rolling balls around on suspended blankets, with the smaller balls being attracted to the larger mass in the middle, as if falling into the well of space-time. This, self-evidently, relies on gravity as its own explanation. It's a classic case of circular reasoning. Time dilation is often cited as conclusive evidence for special relativity, but could bias confirmation be the significant factor here? In 1972, Haveli and Keating performed experiments that purported to confirm special relativity. The evidence was derived from the differences in time recorded by cesium clocks transported in aircraft moving east and west. However, the results have been contested. Louis Essen, for example, the inventor of the atomic clock, published an article in which he discussed the inadequate accuracy of the experiments. Essen concluded that the theory was no more than a bunch of contradictory assumptions together with actual mistakes. It is important to add a caveat to the above. When time contraction and length dilation can be observed, it doesn't necessarily lend credence to the fantastical space-time framework. Quote, Poincaré's advancement of Lorenz's ether is mathematically indistinguishable from special relativity, while being utterly opposed to Minkowski's diagrams and formalization of isotropic constancy found in the space-time metaphysics regime. End quote. Antirelativity.com. GPS is often cited as conclusive proof for general relativity, but this is a fallacy too.
But according to this 1996 paper published by the GPS Joint Programme Office,
quote, the operational control system, OCS, of the Global Positioning System, GPS, does not include the rigorous transformations between coordinate systems that Einstein's general theory of relativity would seem to require. End quote. Adjustments are made, but this is because clocks at high altitude tick faster resulting from variations in air density, not gravity. The air is denser closer to the Earth's surface. Atomic clocks are also sensitive to temperature and pressure changes in their orbits. In addition to dark matter and dark energy, black holes are also talked about today as if they were real. Consensus scientists who describe them as one of the most successful predictions of relativity choose to ignore the fact that Einstein dismissed the idea. In a 1939 paper from the Annals of Mathematics, he concluded that the black hole hypothesis was not convincing and the phenomena did not exist in the real world. The paper is now hidden behind a paywall, but there is also a reference to it at history.com. Bizarrely, theoretical physicists describe black holes as points with zero volume, infinite density, and infinite mass. Think about that. Does this concept sound credible, or more like another mathematical abstraction? Claims that a black hole has been pictured for the first time at the centre of galaxy M87 are at best contentious. The straightforward plasma focus approach makes more sense on every level. Einstein coined the term spooky action at a distance, latterly referred to as quantum entanglement. It seems that one particle knows something about another particle instantaneously over a vast distance. This phenomenon is problematic because it breaks the speed of light barrier, supposedly the upper speed limit of the universe. Because it contradicts special relativity, Einstein was compelled to issue a traffic violation. Quote, I cannot seriously believe in it because the theory cannot be reconciled with the idea that physics should represent a reality in time and space, free from spooky action at a distance. End quote. Albert Einstein in a letter to Max Born, 1947. SAD, spooky action at a distance, has been confirmed post-Einstein. As a result, we have seen numerous attempts to reconcile it with SR, special relativity, via the mathematical mysticism known as quantum physics. Quantum superposition conjectures that particles can exist in different states simultaneously, much like the criminal who claimed to be a town when he was seen robbing a store. Science fiction can't hold a candle to it, that much is certain. But I'll take a step back. I'm not saying quantum physics is entirely without merit, just that it's highly speculative too. To be fair to Einstein, he was a modest man and a reluctant hero. The truth is that others ran with his ideas, and ran, and ran. Today, they are still running around like dogs sniffing each other's butts. Typical of this breed is the British professor Dr. Brian Cox, who made the seamless transition from pop star to pop scientist. He was a keyboard player with D. Ream in the 90s. They had a UK #1 hit with Things Can Only Get Better. I'm not saying Cox is any worse than any of the other talking heads paraded on television today, but things really don't seem to be getting any better. Daring to question relativity remains an anathema, and doing so is liable to draw comparisons with flat earth quackery. Cox is the UK's answer to America's Neil deGrasse Tyson. Several luminaries regard him as the best man to front BBC scientific programming moving forward. Which reminds me of Fred Hoyle's famous words. Another former Royal astronomer, Hoyle was critical of peer review and the graduate school system,
and their abject failure to encourage independent thinking. Prophetically, he sums up,
"The road ahead is hammered out." Quote, "Unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth," end quote. Albert Einstein. A famous line from Shakespeare's Twelfth Night seems apposite. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. I submit that Einstein belongs in the latter category. He was more victim than genius at a time when science took a wrong turn and mathematical modelling began to take precedence over traditional empiricism. Doubt is supposed to be at the heart of good science. The funny thing is, though, while Einstein's fan club hang on almost every word he uttered, they ignore his many doubts. The last word belongs to him. Quote, "You can imagine that I look back on my life's work with calm satisfaction, but from nearby it looks quite different. There is not a single concept of which I am convinced that it will stand firm,
and I feel uncertain whether I'm in general on the right track."
End quote. Albert Einstein.